Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the invisible technology that quietly powers just about every single device we use, keeping our digital lives running smoothly. We're talking about the solid-state revolution.
But to really appreciate it, let's look at a universally frustrating problem. We've all been there, right? You're staring at a loading screen, tapping your desk while some older computer clicks and whirs, struggling just to open a simple document. Why on earth does it take so long for an old computer to think?
Well, the culprit is a little something called latency. Latency is the physical delay that happens when your computer literally has to wait for a mechanical, magnetic disk to spin up to speed and for a physical read-write head to move across that disk just to find a specific track of data. It's the absolute fatal flaw of traditional hard drives. They rely on physical moving parts and, well, moving parts take time.
So, enter solid-state technology. This is the microscopic innovation that completely eliminated those moving parts, and in the process, basically killed the loading screen for good.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The end of latency. 2. Inside the NAND grid. 3. The solid-state family. 4. SSD versus HDD showdown. And finally, 5. The one-year golden rule.
Let's kick things off with part 1, the end of latency.
The contrast here is honestly pretty stark. Traditional magnetic disks suffer from that mechanical delay we just talked about, but solid-state gives you instant digital access. Why? Because there is absolutely no spinning, no physical searching, and zero moving parts. It's just a pure, unhindered electronic pathway right to your files.
Which brings us to part 2, inside the NAND grid.
You might be wondering, how can data possibly be stored without physical motion? To see that magic, we've got to zoom way into the microscopic level. Solid-state devices ditch magnetism entirely. Instead, they use millions of tiny transistors arranged in this incredibly dense, massive grid inside specialized components called NAND chips. This microscopic city of transistors is where your data actually lives. And at every single intersection of this giant grid, you'll find two highly specialized transistors working together to trap electrons in 3 distinct steps. First up, a control gate directs the electron. Second, a special dielectric coating acts as an insulator. And third, the floating gate captures and permanently holds that electrical charge.
It's really brilliant, actually. That dielectric coating traps the charge down in the floating gate, and it acts exactly like a physical light switch. Imagine a light switch that stays in the on position even when your whole house loses power. In the tech world, we call this non-volatile memory. It remembers, even without a power source.
Now, computers obviously don't read trapped electrons, right? They read binary code. So to turn that physically trapped electricity into your photos and videos, the system simply reads a charged floating gate as a binary 1 and an uncharged gate as a binary 0. By controlling electrons across millions of these gates, the system creates all your digital files.
Okay, moving on to part 3, the solid-state family. Let's look at how this non-volatile tech builds the everyday gadgets we all rely on. The solid-state family tree basically has 3 main branches. First, solid-state drives, or SSDs, which have totally replaced hard drives in most modern computers. Then, you've got those super robust USB pen drives for securely moving files around. And finally, ultra-compact memory cards, used in your cameras and smartphones.
When we zero in on SSDs, the performance leap over old hardware is just staggering. An SSD accesses data about 100 times faster than a traditional hard drive. To put that into perspective, it takes just 0.1 milliseconds for an SSD to find your data compared to a totally sluggish 10 milliseconds for a mechanical drive. It's a completely different league. And because nothing physically moves inside them, SSDs are incredibly reliable. Accidentally bump your laptop? No big deal, it won't break easily. They also run much cooler, which drastically extends your battery life and allows for those insanely thin laptop designs we love. Now, they do have a technically limited writing lifespan, but realistically, for the average user, it's barely even an issue. Meanwhile, those ultra-compact memory cards and magnetic immune pen drives are fantastically portable. But a quick warning here, because they're totally silent, you have to be extra careful to eject them properly. Yanking a pen drive out of your computer while it's still actively writing data can permanently corrupt your files, so definitely watch out for that. Let's break it down in part 4, the SSD versus HDD showdown.
In a direct head-to-head comparison, it's honestly a total knockout. The SSD dominates across the board. Zero moving parts, incredibly fast access speeds,
low power consumption, super lightweight, and high impact-resistant durability. The old HDD, it's significantly heavier, way slower because of latency, and incredibly fragile. If you drop a spinning hard drive, those mechanical heads can crash and destroy absolutely everything.
And finally, Part 5, the 1-year golden rule.
Before we completely wrap up this explainer, we really need to talk about a critical piece of maintenance advice that almost nobody seems to know about. Remember those microscopic transistors trapping electrons, acting like little light switches? Well, over a long period of complete inactivity, those perfectly trapped electrons can slowly leak away. And if that charge drops, a binary 1 turns into a 0, and your precious data literally vanishes into thin air.
So, to keep your files intact, you have to follow this golden rule. Plug in and use your solid-state backup devices at least once a year. Just providing them with power refreshes that electrical charge in the floating gates, making sure your data stays totally safe and readable. Knowing that your most precious digital memories, like family photos or massive past projects, could be slowly, silently leaking away inside a desk drawer right now, I want to leave you with this to ponder. When was the last time you plugged in your backup drive? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, go check those hard drives right now.